Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be here at beautiful Templeton Landing on the Buffalo Waterfront, and it's great to see Governor Cuomo back in Buffalo, where he spends time frequently helping us to build the city of Buffalo and communities throughout the Western New York region. Before we get started, I want to recognize some special guests we have with us today. The chair of the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, Robert Gioia. United States Congressman Brian Higgins. New York State Assembly Member Crystal Peoples-Stokes. New York State Assembly Member John Soretto. New York State Assembly Member Michael Kearns. City of Niagara Falls Mayor Paul Deister. And the Vice Chair of the New York State Tourism Advisory Council, Thurman Thomas. I also want to just give you the run of program this morning. We will next hear from Robert Gioia, then Congressman Higgins, and then Governor Andrew Cuomo. It is wonderful to see so many people here to celebrate yet another historic milestone in Western New York. This morning, as I indicated, you will hear from the president of the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, Robert Gioia, who is doing a great job in leading that organization. Congressman Brian Higgins, who has been a champion for our waterfront, and finally, our great governor, Andrew Cuomo. And I have to say that the governor reminds me of my favorite uncle growing up as a child. And what I mean by that, Governor, is that uncle, he was always inspirational, always had something to pick me up when I saw him, and also always gave the best gifts on birthdays and Christmases and other special occasions. It's always great to see our governor here. He has been a true partner and friend to the people of Buffalo and Western New York. Let's give our governor a round of applause. In many ways, the success of Buffalo symbolizes the growth happening all around us in Western New York and beyond. Canalside has become a regional staple, attracting countless visitors to our waterfront each year. The governor has been a critical partner in making all of Western New York more livable, more sustainable, and more innovative. He has harnessed our assets to build bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. And that building is taking place in every section of Buffalo and throughout our region. We are so proud of the progress and growth that we have seen take shape in this region, and there is no doubt that the best is yet to come. Now, please join me in welcoming President of the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, Robert Gioia.
Well, I've been called a lot, but not seldom Mr. President. Tom D. might have an issue with that, but thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here. Governor, welcome back. We're great to have you here and join as we continue to celebrate the resurgence of Buffalo and all of Western New York, and certainly led by your vision and leadership and enthusiasm. Whether it's from spurring growth to creating jobs and investing in education, the governor continues to be a friend and champion of the people of Buffalo and Western New York. As a result of his leadership, there is a new strength and vitality in the region. Unemployment is down, jobs are up, and businesses are choosing Western New York to grow and invest here. And the proof is in the numbers. This past summer, more New Yorkers visited Canalside and took in the great entertainment and fun activities of our city that our city has to offer than ever before. The reality is 5 or 10 years ago, I don't think any of us could have imagined that this could be possible. And it's the governor's focus of Western New York that has been a game changer. So let's take a look. We got to go look. We have to start at the beginning and move forward. For decades, downtown Buffalo served as the city's booming industrial trade sector. Unfortunately, when businesses left and when businesses leave, they don't tidy up after they leave. They left a mess for us to clear up and clean up, and this became the vision of our region's decline. But 6 years ago, the governor made a central priority in his administration to revitalize Western New York. You look a lot younger in that picture there, Governor. I could probably say the same thing. I don't think any of us would have thought that we would see in our generation the headlines throughout the state and the country on what people are saying about Buffalo. You know, a little over 3 weeks ago, a gentleman came to Buffalo, Jeffrey Gunlock, and invested a part of his wealth into one of our icon cultural institutions, the Albright Knox Art Gallery. He mentioned the long talked about talking proud theme in Buffalo. I would urge that we say we are all feeling proud of Western New York and continue to do so. And I think it's clear to say that one of the symbols, just one of the symbols of the resurgence into tomorrow is Buffalo's Canalside, our inner and outer harbor. We have partnered with the state to build a national model, and the governor has always told us that you can't do this alone. You need to partner, both public and private, and I have to tell you, the relationship that we have with Empire State Development, the governor, and our elected officials is profound, and we certainly welcome that. And we have not done this alone, and we thank you for that. But this is what was 6 years ago, and this is what it is today. And I don't think anybody could have managed that. And I mentioned to the governor before we came to the stage, this has taken us 6 years to get to this point. It took Baltimore over 30 years to get to this point. So I don't think anyone can be more prouder of the effort and the vision that was been led by the governor, and we thank you for that, Governor. You know, given all the news of late of some of the horrific storms down south and that, I think what we have always been very fearful of is to embrace our 4 climates. Well, what we found is when we build an ice skating rink, not only did they come, they came in droves. And that's been one of the challenges we've had at Canalside. You think you're going to get 1,000, you get 10,000. So it's really, and who would have ever thought that since in the last 2 years, over 130,000 people would come outside and skate and enjoy the waterfront during the winter season. We talk about partnership, public and private. How many of you drove by the old Donovan building for years to now look what it looks like? The partnership with Benderson Development has transformed that facility into a hotel, restaurants, and the home for Phillips Lytle Law Firm. Quite a resounding difference in what can be done with creativeness and partnership, both public and private. And soon we'll be breaking ground for the Explore and More Museum, which will be an icon down on the waterfront. It's very consistent with most waterfront developments throughout the country and the world, if you will, and promises to bring well over 200,000 additional visitors to Canalside. But that's not the only piece of the of our waterfront. It's the outer harbor. And right in this room, a little over 3 years ago, the governor announced the transformation of the outer harbor by transferring close to 400 acres of land to the NFTA. Now, I'm near and dear to that because for 8 of those years, I was chairman of the NFTA, and we couldn't get rid of the land. But there wasn't an agency to really take it on and do it the way that is being done now, and I think you'll see some of the success and his vision to transfer it to the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation. First thing was, what do? He created the first state park in the city of Buffalo, Buffalo Harbor State Park. Not only does he have the vision, he also has the money and the funds to help make sure that it accomplishes it, and that he has done with the investment in the harbor in Buffalo. Wilkeson Point, named after Samuel Wilkeson, who was integral in making sure that the terminus of the Erie Canal was in Buffalo as opposed to Black Rock. Transformational for this community, and we've honored him by naming Wilkeson Point in his behalf. Taking a silo and creating a world-renowned canvas out of it and making sure that it mirrors what has been done throughout the world, whether it be, and is now one of the beacons of downtown Buffalo and the waterfront skyline, and you can see it from across the border, and it really is something that people will visit all the day and all the night, and quite frankly, is quite a transformational canvas for the waterfront. You know, when we talk about, you think you're going to get 50, you get 500, well, we saw a bike ferry. And the idea of the bike ferry actually came from when Sam Hoyt and I went up to Quebec to really look at the lighting of the silos in Mill City in Quebec, which was done after the 400th birthday of the city of Quebec. And we flew out of Billy Bishop Airport in Toronto, and the only way you get there is a car ferry, and it's back and forth, back and forth. And we looked at Sam and I said, hell, we could drive this. And quite frankly, it's exactly what created it, and they've had a second boat now, and it's been really exciting. But there's still more to do. You know, today we're announcing the completion of the Breakwall Project, and the governor just visited the Breakwall, and we'll tell you certainly more about it. And clearly, it's about launching and announcing the beginning of a final phase of this investment in Western New York on our outer harbor. And we're proud to be a successful partner in building and as the excitement continues in building a better Buffalo. You know, I've been at this for 4 years. And there's been somebody here that's been at it a lot longer than I have been, even though he's younger than I am. But I have to tell you, when you think of the waterfront, you think of now our Congressman Brian Higgins and all he has done to really improve and make sure that what is done on the waterfront continues to be consistent with the vision of his community, partnering with Governor Cuomo and partnering with Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation. It's a great partnership, and I'm pleased to announce and welcome Congressman Brian Higgins.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert Gioia and Mayor Byron Brown and distinguished guests who are here. It's interesting that we're here because Buffalo is here because of the water. 100 years ago, 150 years ago, and we're still here because of the water, because it's our greatest natural resource. You think about it, you look at the history of this community and the lost opportunities because of failed leadership. Those days are over because we have a governor who wants only what Buffalo and Western New York wants for itself, and that is economic independence and self-sufficiency. He's providing the resources to help us unleash the great resources and creativity of the private sector. You see it all over Buffalo and Western New York, in particular at the waterfront. I see Mayor Paul Deister's here from Niagara Falls. You know, 60 years ago, there was a guy by the name of Robert Moses. Had a lot of power in this state. And he imposed his will on the city of Niagara Falls. He built what he called a parkway. It wasn't a parkway. It was close to a parkway, but it was never a parkway. It was an 18.5-mile elevated section of highway that denied the people from Niagara Falls access to the greatest waterfront in the entire world, Niagara Falls. And then he named it after himself. Robert Caro, the great historian, biographer of Johnson, and Robert Moses, he always writes the last sentence of his book first. In The Power Broker, which won a Pulitzer Prize, the last sentence was, "Why weren't they grateful?" They weren't grateful because you took away what this community wanted so badly, and that's access to the great resources. Because of Andrew Cuomo, the state has committed almost $50 million to really create a parkway along what was the Robert Moses Expressway. And Robert Moses named it after himself because he could. The governor came in and renamed it the Niagara Scenic Parkway because that's what it is. Governor, thank you for that great, great vision. In 2002, 4 governors ago, State of the State message, Buffalo is clamoring for access to its waterfront. The governor at that time in 2002, he came after Mario Cuomo and obviously before Andrew. He said we're going to have a new state park on Buffalo's Outer Harbor waterfront. Everybody in Buffalo was enthusiastic and optimistic that finally we would have access to our waterfront. 3 months later, they said, Governor, where's the park on the waterfront? They said, well, we ran out of money, and we never got it. Governor Andrew Cuomo came in and made a $15 million commitment, worked with the NFTA to take over land that was previously undeveloped, and now we have a beautiful outer harbor, and the 3rd iteration of the improvements are being made as we speak today, redefining Buffalo from an old, declining industrial city to a city of new hope, vibrance, and optimism. But it took the work of this visionary governor who had great confidence in us to say, Buffalo, you can be better because you were, and you are today, and you're getting better every single day. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the 56th governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Remind me to never follow Congressman Higgins again. It is really my pleasure to be back, and it is a beautiful, beautiful day, and I took a ride around before coming here, and, you know, I come and go. You're here all the time, and I think maybe you take it a little for granted, but the progress is just breathtaking. I mean, every time I come back, there's something new, there's something inspirational, and it really is amazing. I want to thank Congressman Higgins for that kind introduction. He actually, we hadn't spoken about it, but I had a conversation with one of my daughters came home to visit her father from college. I'm at that stage now where you call up your kids and you say, please come home and visit me just once, because they're off now in college. But one of them came home and we were talking about Buffalo, and she said, well, you know, what is the thing that you did that was different, Dad, than past governors? And I said, I believed in the people of Buffalo. And I was willing to invest state money in the vision of the people of Buffalo. Congressman Higgins has been talking about developing the waterfront as the asset and the mistakes that we made closing ourselves off from the waterfront, Robert Moses Parkway, et cetera. And he's exactly right. And he was talking about this before anyone was talking about it, literally in the country. And we just had the intelligence as a state government to come and help Congressman Higgins make his vision a reality. But our partners, who are your local leaders, the mayor, Robert Joyer, Howard Zemsky, Congressman Higgins, Paul Deister, these are the people who really have brought Buffalo back. And let's give them a round of applause for the great, great work that they have done. And, you know, to me, I took a walk out on that breakwall, and you have to do that because it really is, it's a powerful place. I was saying that we should come back and name it for someone and get it attention, because we really have to get people to go out and see it. It's special when you go out and you actually feel it, and it's part of the whole state park, and it's next to Gallagher Beach, so the pieces are all coming together. But it's also a place that makes you think. And Canalside really does bring back so many memories and so many lessons. And I was thinking as I was walking out, you have a whole urban development story about Buffalo that has to be told. Robert Joy is exactly right. Baltimore was the national model on waterfront development. Everybody said, you have to go see Baltimore and see what they did in Baltimore, and you'll see how you can revitalize the city by revitalizing the waterfront. That model is now Buffalo. So there's an urban development story that the mayor should tell to mayors and Robert Joyer should tell. and Howard Zemsky should tell to the private sector about how you can actually help partner with government. It is possible. But there's also a life story in what has happened over the past 6 years and where we came from. And I remember coming out as my first real encounter with Buffalo was through a fellow named Tim Russert. We were both working for my father. Tim was my father's press secretary. And we would come out for Buffalo events, and we were both in our mid-20s and single and had energy and weren't exactly wise and made the mistakes that young people make. But we spent a lot of time in Buffalo, and I was introduced to it through the eyes of Tim Russert. And I remember the impression of a grayness about Buffalo, that there was a despair, a despondency in people, that everything was about the past, there wasn't enough optimism for the future. Everything about Buffalo was what was, and let me tell you about the old days, and nobody was talking about a vision to go forward. I remember Tim saying to me, everybody leaves because you have to. Everybody leaves because you have to. And that was the impression I had from Buffalo. Year after year after year. And then 20 years, you'd come up with these half-baked plans to rebuild Buffalo. First, the waterfront was going to be Adelphia Towers, remember? And then the whole plan for the waterfront was a Bass Pro Shop. That was like a 10-year plan, Bass Pro Shop. I remember hearing when they announced the Bass Pro Shop, that's nice, a Bass Pro Shop is nice. I go to a Bass Pro Shop. But how many people fish? You know, can you really sustain an economy on a Bass Pro store? But that was the vision for the waterside, was a Bass Pro Shop. And it's sort of ironic now because nobody's noticed, but there's going to be a Bass Pro Shop in Buffalo because they took over Cabela's, and Cabela's is going to become a Bass Pro Shop. So we're going to have a Bass Pro Shop. And nobody noticed because you can't really build an economy around a Bass Pro Shop. But that was the whole vision. Meanwhile, Baltimore's reclaiming their waterfront, and all these cities are doing these great things. But it wasn't, we didn't have the leadership, and we didn't have the interest from the state, and we didn't have the investment from the state. And I'm sorry to say that, but that went on for a long time. And what turned it around? Well, first, you didn't appreciate the stamina and the strength and the grit of the people of Buffalo. People of Buffalo don't quit. They believe in Buffalo, they love Buffalo, and they don't give up. You know, Buffalo is quintessential. It is quintessential New York, you know. We're not fancy, we're fundamental. We believe in what we believe in the fundamental values, and we're tough, and we fight for it. And people were not giving up on Buffalo. And yeah, you had generations of young people who moved away because there wasn't enough there, but you had people who stayed and said, we're going to make Buffalo work, and we're going to rebuild Buffalo. And you had that fundamental commitment of people who just don't give up. You knock them down, they get back twice as strong. You had good people who came forward to lead the effort. Guys like Robert Joya, who don't need to do this, but just because they believe in the community. Like Howard Zemsky, like John Majori, like Byron Brown, like Mark Polenkars, like Tony Masiello, who said, I'm not giving up, and I'm going to get in there to help craft a plan, and I'm going to advocate. We then had a smart plan. Howard Zemsky, private sector partnership, they developed a smart plan with the mayor and the county executive. That plan on the Buffalo Billion on how to revitalize Buffalo made sense, and it worked. And the proof is overwhelming. Robert Joya said it's in all the numbers. Jobs are up. Jobs pay better wages. Home values are up. Home sales are up. And most importantly, young people are coming back to Buffalo for the first time in generations. %17 increase in people from 25 to 34, which means the future is now coming to you because they are the future. Canalside, 5 years ago, 150,000 visitors to Canalside. This year, 1.5 million visitors to Canalside. Just think about that, tenfold increase, 1.5 million. City of Buffalo only has about 260,000 people. 6 times the population of Buffalo has come to visit Canalside. And what's most exciting is, as the mayor said, you ain't seen nothing yet. The best is yet to be. We have tasked the Buffalo Partnership to come up with phase 2 for the Buffalo Billion. They have to get me that plan in December. I'm going to put it in the state of the state for January. And that is going to be, how do you take the success we have and the energy that we have, and now what is the next 5-year plan to build on this energy? But the hard part was done. The hard part was getting started. The hard part was getting past the cynicism and the skepticism and getting the people of Buffalo to believe in Buffalo once again. That was the hard part, literally convincing the people of Buffalo that there is a future after all those years of broken promises. We have the energy with us, and I believe in positive synergy. Just as the way there's a negative synergy, there's a positive synergy. And the momentum is with us. And ask Thurman Thomas about momentum. It's all about momentum. Once you get those legs moving and you get that body going forward, and you have those 200 pounds moving, I'm being nice, under 200 pounds. You have those 200 pounds moving, now the momentum is with you and the energy is with you. And the momentum is with us and the energy is with us. And that plan is being developed. I urge you all to participate in it. I'm excited to get it. I'm excited to include it in my plan for the state of the state. There's also a story that I read in the papers that I looked into that in some ways for me really captures what these past 6 years have been all about. And captures not just the past 6 years, but the past 30 years from when I first came to Buffalo with Tim Russert to today. There's a family called the DeAngelis family, which owns a carousel that the father of the family, Dominic DeAngelis, spent his life saving to buy a beautiful carousel. Dominic DeAngelis was an Italian-American immigrant, and he came and he loved the carousel. Now, my grandfather came from Italy, was a carpenter, and he loved carousels. Not because he loved going around in a circle. He loved the woodwork and the artistry of the carousel. Because the carousel, these are all carved wood horses from back then and chariots, etc. And it was an art form. One of the great carousel manufacturers was in North Tonawanda, Spillman Carousel Company. And they made carousels which were really pieces of art that went all around the world. And Dominic DeAngelis finally bought one of these carousels and operated it in a state called Massachusetts. He passes away in 1952. And the family will not sell the carousel. They are committed to keeping their father's dream alive. And they keep this carousel. They don't have a lot of resources. They store the carousel under their home, all right? This is since 1952. They move it from place to place. They're trying to find funds to refurbish the carousel. They're trying to find a home. They can't do it. They move it out to Ohio to store it in a company out in Ohio. And since 1952, They're working on this dream to revitalize this carousel and find a new home for this carousel. And they would not give up. They would not give up. It was their father's dream. He loved it, and they would not give up. And the Wendt Foundation came forward from Buffalo and raised the funds to purchase the carousel. State of New York Dormitory Authority is going to pay $600,000 to refurbish the carousel. So now we've acquired it, we've refurbished it, but it doesn't yet have a home. And the question is, once it's refurbished, where does it go? That carousel belongs at Canalside, because that carousel is a perfect metaphor for the past 30 years and the past 6 years. There was a dream of the beauty of Buffalo. We knew how beautiful it was when it shined, and we would not give up on the dream. We would not give up on the dream. For 30 years, we wouldn't give up on the dream. And some people moved away, but some people just held fast to the dream. And they believed, and they were smart, and they were competent, and that dream came to fruition. And Buffalo is shining in a way it hasn't shined in decades. And when we are done, it will shine brighter than it has ever shone before. When that carousel is rebuilt, it will be a better carousel than it ever was before. It should be the jewel on the top of the Canalside crown. And it should be there as a monument to remind everyone, hold fast to your dreams, because you can make them a reality. If you don't give up, if you surround yourself with a support structure of smart, loyal people, and you keep putting one foot in front of the other. We today, the state pledges $1.2 million as a challenge grant to It's a challenge grant to the Restoration Corporation to raise $1.2 million, which they say they can do. For $2.4 million, we can build a carousel house at Canalside. I don't want to tell Robert Joya my opinion on where I think it should be sited. I think we should go through a legitimate siting study and process, but I think right next to Clinton's Ditch would be perfect, but I'm not saying anything. But we'll get this done. We'll go forward with the next phase of the plan, and we're not going to stop until Buffalo is better and stronger than it has ever been before. And going through what we went through, we will be. We will be a stronger community for what we went through. Thank you, and God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you to Governor Cuomo, who has been a steadfast champion for Western New York. Thank you all very much.